Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Start of a new week. How was your weekend, Bob?
It was nice. It was very quiet, which was good. And we did a little shopping, and we had some family fun Saturday night that you were lucky enough to share with us, and we that was great.
Well, great. Well, everyone, this is Bob Graham, and I'm Tom Brush, and we're here for our next edition of today's Antidote, where, if you are new to this, we've been doing this since the middle of March, since the pandemic hit, trying to help people find that one thing that may help them today, may help them tomorrow, or may help them somewhere down the line. So today our topic is about multiplying the R. And just, again, if you haven't been with us, the R is really what's real. And it comes about from your experience, perspective, and knowledge. And so today we're talking about how do you multiply that, which was an interesting word. I was thinking a lot about increase, but multiplying is great. So we went with that. So why don't you share, before you get into that, Bob, we know the year end is coming up. And so for all of us, December 31st is a destination. May not be your big target for you. It might not be, or maybe it is a big target for you because it's year end. Some people might be on a fiscal year. Either way, it's the end of 2020 and it's the start of 2021. And I think given that milestone, we all have a destination that we're trying to achieve. And so if you're struggling to figure out what your next destination in 2021 is, whether you had a great year, whether it was super challenging, whether you pivoted, we're going to run a workshop the last 4 days of the year, the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, to help you find that next destination. Anything you want to offer about that, Bob, before we go back to the show?
Yeah, I was going to say I got a couple questions about this. First of all, if you can't make all those days, they're going to be, each workshop is at 9 a.m. Eastern time. It's going to run about an hour and a half, so 9 to 10:30. But if there's a day where you go, oh, December 29th, I have plans. I'm going to my dentist. It's okay. We're going to have a replay of it available in the early afternoon so that you can catch up and be on track the next day. But we encourage you to be live. There are a couple of things that are going to happen with that workshop, I think. First of all, you're going to get a real good understanding of your messaging, your audience, what you're selling I did in backwards order. Sorry about that. But those three things, what you're selling, who your audience is, and how to communicate with them. And that's changed for a lot of us over the course of this year. So we're going to talk about some of those changes and prepare you to go into the next year. But we're also going to be doing some things, the way we're interacting. This is not going to be Tom and me talking at you. No, we don't do that. We're going to facilitate discussions, which means that you're going to get to engage with other participants. You're going to get to share with them. You're going to get to learn from them. And you're also going to have the opportunity to get to know them and maybe even work with them going forward as you choose. So this is not just one of those listen to us preach workshops. It's quite the opposite. This is a highly interactive, engaging, get your notepad out. You're going to take some serious notes. You're going to have your mind blown and you're going to start to get super creative. And I think that's one of the things. Someone's like, I don't really want to sit and listen to you guys talk for 4 days. And I was like, I don't want to talk for 4 days. And I know Tom doesn't.
Right. So we'll share more information about that at the end of the program. So again, just mark your calendars for 9 a.m. Eastern time, December 28, 29, 30, 31. There'll be more information about it at the end. So now back to our topic for today, multiplying the R. So Bob, why don't you take us through your thoughts on that a little bit?
Well, I'm going to take us on a little detour, Tom. And this is a situation that I know. This is a situation I think comes up for a lot of people at this time of year. It's come up for me. I have a really good client of mine who has said that he'd like to pay me for the first 3 months of 2021 in advance. And he wants to do it for his tax benefit. And that's totally fine. I get it. It's great for him. For me, that means that before the end of the year, I'm going to get a bigger influx of cash than I expected. I can put that aside and use it to pay my expenses over the next 3 months, or I can take a little of that and invest it in my business. And I watched a workshop yesterday or on Saturday, and there's some really cool things that you can do when you're presenting. And the equipment that it would require is about $400. So I am going through the mental gymnastics of to multiply my R, to get my message to be distinct from other people's message, it would cost me $400 additional dollars. And I really think that I can leverage that technology next year in some really good ways to do more speaking, to have people come to presentations I do and go, wow, that's like nothing I've ever seen. You got to do this here, or you've got to do that there. So I'm trying to decide in part of that, multiplying that R, in getting others to understand what I do and to see me as different than everyone else. Do I invest that $400? It's a gamble. And I think this is one of the things that we see in business. How far do you invest? So for me, just so you know, so it's more concrete, what I need to invest in, believe it or not, is a microphone like yours, Tom, one of those Blue Yetis, so I can ditch the headset and so I can move back a couple feet, which will give me more space. And then there's some software you can get so that with a green screen, wrong arm, I can make it so that I can actually present my presentation on the green screen and it'll look more interactive. And I watched a guy do a Saturday, and everyone, this was a group of speakers, no less, watching this guy do his presentation. And in the chat box, everyone's like, you got to show me how to do that. That's awesome. Whoa, how is he doing that? Here's the thing. I know one of my advantages in business is I can figure out the technology faster. So all those people, there are about 38 people on that call. I bet 35 of them haven't got a clue. I've already researched it out, figured it out. But the question is, will that multiply the R, or am I chasing another shiny object?
Well, I think, to me, it increases your R, or it influences your R. Whether that's going to directly correlate to a return on investment, I think that's a different question. I think there are two issues. I think one issue is you now have new knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. That influences what's real for you. Now you're considering maybe I do something a little bit differently. You also have a new experience. You've seen it. So you understand a little bit of like what it could do and why you think it might add value. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's real for somebody else. They might just be like, oh yeah, that's cool. We don't really care. Just give up and give good content. You can have the greatest setup. Mm-hmm. Your content stink. I'm not saying that yours does. Just
Thank you. I was going to say that.
If your content if your content isn't any good, or you don't know how to leverage the technology in a way that others say, they might say it was unique, but it wasn't really. Okay, great. I could have got the same thing from a PowerPoint. Might be what's real for them because they haven't ever experienced anything different. And so I think, that's the piece of it. And that's why when we were talking about multiplying, to me, multiplying is a large influence. It's changing things dramatically. And so, what is it that can do that for ourselves? Now, for you, that might be a wow, shining moment. And you'd be like, that's significantly different. So now what's real for you is that you believe you got the greatest tool ever. And that why wouldn't anybody and everyone hire you? Well, if your knowledge on marketing isn't great and you can't figure out a way to get that out there, then it's not real for somebody else. They don't know. They can't experience it. They don't know, well, why is this any different than anything else? They might be all thinking, hey, you know what? Who cares? We're going back to live events by spring because now we've got a vaccine and it'll be nicer weather. And now Zoom stuff won't be that important. So I think that's maybe where you have to think about, or we all have to think about, is what do we know and what does our client or our customer or the people we're trying to work with know? It all goes back to that. Is it you pushing it out, or is it you finding people who are ready to receive that kind of information and be like, that's the coolest thing ever. I know that my people would love that as a presentation experience. And so I think that to me is your question. So there are two questions. Figuring out whether it's a return on investment is that second one.
Okay. No, that's really helpful. And I think, I hope I'm not alone in this. I think we all have these decisions about, I was talking to someone about whether they should get a green screen. I was talking to someone else about, should I upgrade my computer? They were having some lag issues when they were doing Zoom meetings with people. I'm like, you kind of have to have that technology. And it's like, well, they wanted to buy a Mac and it was going to be $2,500. And I'm like, I don't really have that money. It's an investment. We make investments in our business. It's funny. I was in my office over the weekend checking for mail and things, and I bought 250 plastic kazoos. Now, I used those for a training activity for several years, and it was great training activity, and it was beautiful. They are not individually wrapped. And as I looked at them with my new knowledge and my new perspective, it's like, these are basically doorstops. There is nothing useful about them because there's no way to individually wrap them. And it forces me to change how I do my presentations. And I think that's the thing that excites me, believe it or not. Most people are like, oh, I have to change things. This is really bad. To me, that's part of the fun. Like this new technology that I have in the new microphone and figuring all this out, that's fun to me. That's like, wow, that's a great activity. And I think that's the shiny object part of it. But so
could be. You almost don't know until you try it, right? It's like anything else. You have to make that decision. Do I think this is you believe it's increasing your knowledge and experience?
Mm-hmm.
The question is now, if you put it out there, will others believe that or not? And
right.
If not, then maybe it was a shiny object that you chased. Doesn't mean that it wasn't a good investment. It doesn't mean that you don't have new knowledge that somewhere down the road you might use. Might just not be right now. You might be ahead of the curve. For those of us who were using Zoom before the pandemic, we might have been like, yeah, this is a nice thing to have, and it's great that you can do these type of things, but really, it's not that big a deal. We could get on the phone. I could travel to see clients or customers. I get together with my family. It's now that we need it, the fact that you put people who had used Zoom way ahead of those who hadn't. And so I think we just never know when we make an investment, when we multiply and increase our R, when will others need it? When will they need to receive what we now have? And I think that to me is a little bit about trying to hopefully explain what it means to multiply the R.
So let's crystallize that a little bit, because I think we danced around it. We're talking about the R, what makes things real for you, which works in conjunction with what someone else thinks is real for them. And when those things align, you're real and they're real, or when your real enhances their real, that's when things start to get good. That's when opportunities exist.
Or solve a problem for them.
Or solve a problem. As we try to get into the idea of multiplying the R, it's about looking for ways to take what we know, what we believe is real for us, what we understand is real for us, and share it in new ways with other people. Because often what happens, I think, is we have this knowledge, but we're afraid to share it. We're reluctant to share it. We want to do what everyone else has always done rather than carving our own path, because when we carve our own path, it's risky. If I invest in this microphone and other stuff, it's a risk. It's $400. I need to see a recoup on that, but who knows what it might spark, because maybe I get really good at it and other people come to me and they go, oh, I saw how you did this. Show me how to do it. And next thing you know, they're like, you know what? Let me tell you where I was going to speak, because you're so much better than me. Who knows? We don't know what the answer is. I think it's a lot like the pandemic. Tell me what the risk is. Well, but really, Tom, if you think about it, tell me what the risk is. If I go out to the grocery store today at noon, what's the chances of me getting the pandemic? If I have a family party on Christmas, what are the odds of me getting the pandemic? We don't know that. And so some of us are very conservative. Some of us go, it's not a big deal. It's the same in our business. What's the risk reward? We don't know. And I think what I see so often with entrepreneurs is they don't make a decision until they have all the facts, and then they still want one more piece. Like, I need this to be completely clear. And there's a certain amount of gambling.
Well, it can't ever be crystal clear, right? Because it's all a gamble. What we share, we have no idea. I mean, we can take educated guesses, and we can imagine that it's going to be beneficial to someone else. Well, we don't know for certain. Even if we know for certain that it might be beneficial, are they going to leverage it? Are they going to take advantage of it? That becomes out of our control. So we have to make a decision based on the knowledge, experience, and perspective we have of, like, for you and your technology. You have to take the best educated guess you have, knowing what you know. You know, you have more information about it now than you did before you took the seminar. Just like if someone goes out and buys a new piece of equipment because they feel like this is going to enhance a big part of their business. Okay, it might, and it might not. We have to make a decision that this is real. And hopefully, based on our knowledge, experience, and perspective, we are making decisions that will meet where others are. And that's where, again, I think that we can't just stick with what ours is, what's real for us. We need to really understand what's real for the people that we are trying to reach, because that's going to help us have those two things merge or come closer to merging than if we just are saying what's real for us. Like, you can go out and blast to the high world how great this technology is, that it's awesome, that I have this new thing and I can do this, 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 and this. If no one can see that or see the value, it doesn't meet a need for them. It doesn't matter how great the tool is. It's just they're not ready for it yet. So I think that's one of the things, is that in some ways we need to multiply our R. We need to gain more knowledge, experience, and perspective so that it influences what our R is like. And then we have to figure out, how do we make sure that we are understanding where others are at and when they might be ready to receive that.
I want to put Peter's comment up there. Tom, do you want to take a crack at this one? R is an abstract. I get confused as to how one might calculate a multiplication of such a thing. What I'm hearing is risk versus reward calculations, which we probably used too many R words in one morning.
Yeah, I think we had that issue a couple of weeks ago when you were going off with your R words. I think it's an abstract, in my mind, is because it's always being influenced. Everything that happens, every input that we get has an influence on our R. And so it's ever changing. So you could offer that if I go to college and get a degree and I spend 4 years, at the end of that 4 years, what's real for me is going to be significantly different than what it was at the start of the 4 years. If I go out and take a job for 4 years, my R is going to change dramatically, because every day I'm having new influences and new experiences. And I think that's what's so challenging, is not only is every day our what's real for us changing, what's real for the people we're trying to connect and engage with is also changing. And so why it becomes very difficult sometimes to find the right messaging that reaches them. Because by the time we figure it out, something new may have struck them. You know, when I go out to say, if I went out to say, hey, I'm a great speaker because I use breakout rooms and you can do all these cool things, blah, 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 whatever. Well, if the person I'm speaking to just heard from you talk about how you can stand back and you got a green screen over here, they're going to be like, Tom, it's great, but that's really, you're you're behind the curve. I just heard something that was more effective. I might have thought that I had it all going on when in reality there was something else out there. So I don't know that it's abstract. It's just, you're going to love this. It is what it is.
Because it's constantly changing.
Correct. Because what I thought R was influenced by Peter's comment. And so I went from, it didn't, it was a one comment in a flash moment. So it might not have had as much of an influence. Whereas for you, what was real for you on Saturday, when you watched this thing, you were like, wow, this is really cool. This could really make a big difference in what I do and how I present and how people receive what I am. Your R was probably influenced more than just some other webinar that you saw where you're like, yeah, that's a good information, but it's not really that much of an influence or that different from what I didn't already know.
That helps. I also have the opportunity, and this is what makes this fun and complicated. Steve mentioned to me, and he does video, helping people with video. So Steve said to me, hey, don't buy that microphone until you talk to me. There are better options. And that's one of those things. So it's going to be gathering more information. And I think that can sometimes be what paralyzes people, because they're constantly gathering information. It's the last person who told them what to do is the most important one, versus being true to what they know is right for them, gathering that information, taking it in, evaluating it, and then creating an output based on what is real to them given that new information. I think that's where we take the abstraction and make it concrete. By 10:30 today, I hope to have clarity. I'm either going to go out and buy this or I'm going to not. Just like, right. Another one that we talked about maybe 2 months ago was my branding of my company.
Right.
I got new information about that the other day, and it was like, you know what? Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe I should keep both companies for various reasons. That wasn't what I expected to hear, but that information came in. And I think one of the things we often fall into the trap of is, I don't want any more information. No, I've made up my mind. And that's when I find I often do myself a disservice.
Well, I think there's, a fine line. At some point, you have to make a decision. Well, you don't have to. You actually don't have to make a decision. Right. You can continue to wait. And I think that's where neither is right. It's just
correct.
Real. If I'm a person who says I need to have all the information before I make a decision, and if I don't feel like I've got enough information, I'm not making a decision. Some people might say that's wrong. And I would disagree and say that's just what's real for them. Now, they might need prodding. They might be scared that, there might be reasons why they're not doing it. And they're using that they need more information as an excuse. What's interesting is that once we do it, we gain more information than we could ever get, because now we have taken that step. And now we know. Right? So if you go out and buy the software, you will now probably in the next week know way more about it and way more about its value than anyone else could ever tell you before you purchase it. Because that's what's real for them. It's not necessarily what's real for you. So I think that's where we can get caught up in trying to be overly specific about what is real, rather than just it is what it is. If it so happens that right now my dog walk in here, that would influence what's real for me.
Right.
It's not gonna have a huge influence unless the dog comes in and completely tears up my computer.
Well, you may not hear a comment, or you may not be fully focused on a comment, and so you may miss something. We have that happen. Not that it's a bad thing, it just is. Yeah. I mean, that's where we are with life. So, Tom, I'm going to turn things around. What's that one thing you think we should do today that's going to change everything? No pressure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because if we're going back to what is multiplying the R, and I'm going to go with it, it's going to be different for everyone, and accepting that yours is different. I'm going to go with that. Is that multiplying the R means it's going to be greatly influenced. And I think if we take all this information in, and sometimes we have to figure out, with all of this, does it change what we decide to do? So I'll go back to your initial thing, is that for you have to determine when is the time am I going to set a deadline for when I'm going to make this decision? Is it going to be more about, do I need more information? Do I need all those things? And then at some point, what's real for you is you'll figure it out. Only later, I think, will we realize if we've multiplied the R. We've probably influenced and added to it. Now later, we're going to find out whether we're going to gain more knowledge because we did something. So I guess that's it, is that in doing, you are probably going to gain more information than you are in gathering information.
Right.
Because it's real for you. It's not what somebody else thinks or believes. It's what you have experienced.
I put up Peter's comment. Does self-actualization count as multiplying one's R, or is it the only aspect that really matters?
Oh, Peter, I love your questions. And I hate your questions.
You didn't hear me jump into that one. All I heard was self-actualization. Shoot, that means the course I didn't pay as much attention to wasn't as real for me as I wish it had been.
I think that I would say yes. Because we have all this knowledge, experience, and perspective. And until we figure out how it makes us real and how we will use it, leverage it, benefit from it, we haven't really actualized it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that once we actualize it, we say, this is probably tomorrow's conversation. Great lead in, Peter. Until we actualize it, it's just sitting in our being it's just a knowledge, experience, and perspective we've had. Until we figure out how that influences where we're at and who we are, that probably is. When you come up with a self-actualization about yourself, you have started to multiply your R. So that's what I'm going to go with. Thanks, Peter. Because I think that's actually true. Is that
all the better, Tom? That's actually true.
It's actually true. Is that all that we have all this gathered in our heads, in our minds, in our bodies, in our souls, in our hearts, until we figure out how to use that then in a way that is real for us. And once we do, that is how you multiply your R.
Wow. I don't even know where to go from there, Tom.
Probably means it's a good time to say thanks everybody for watching today. We gave them their one thing or maybe a couple things, and Peter was a big help. So thank you, Peter, for that. If you are not a member of the Ring of Renegades, Facebook group, please join us. Just go to Facebook and search for Ring of Renegades. We'll have conversations like this. So this show is in there every morning, and there are great conversations around the topics that we discuss and other things that are just going on in people's business that they're struggling with and trying to figure out how to take the next step. So,
plus motivational quotes, articles of interest, people offering their insights on all kinds of things that really I know for me as a business person, it increases my knowledge, experience, and perspective every day in that group.
Absolutely. So with that, we are going to provide some, as we mentioned at the start, some more information about our workshop coming up on December 27, 28, 29, 28 through 31st. That'll show up shortly. Join us in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. And if not, we will see you back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern time for the next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day.
Sign up for that workshop, people.
Sign up for the workshop. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
What's your next destination? 2020 was a challenging year for business owners, leaders, and nonprofits. Whether it was a boom, a bust, or pivoting to something new, on December 31st we will have reached a destination along our pathway. Now it is time to chart your next destination with new knowledge, experience, and perspective. Given all that has happened this year, are you clear on what is real for your audience? What to say, how to say it, and where to say it. No matter how your year went, being clear on these things is critical. Yet setting long-term goals during these times is challenging and confusing. Who can predict what things will look like in a year or 6 months? Charting our next destination provides focus, clarity, and direction. On December 28th to 31st, join our workshop where we will help you identify what your audience needs, how to speak to them, and where to find them. Can't make one day? Don't worry, it will all be recorded and available early afternoon each day. This interactive and collaborative effort will have you ready to take your next step. Register now and jumpstart your 2021. Chart your next destination and your unique pathway to success.